Okay, everybody, welcome to this new episode of color correction within Premiere Pro. This episode I'm covering the three-way color corrector as well as secondary color correction, which I'm going to define. Well, you can look at primary color correction as what they would call a global color correction, which basically means you are affecting the entire image. If we grab our fast color corrector and drop it on a clip here, you grab our color wheel here and we start pulling over to the blue. This is adding blue to the entire image. Whereas you grab the darks and start darkening or brightening the mids, this is affecting the entire image as opposed to a portion of the image. And secondary color correction is really about affecting a very specific part of your image, whether it is a geographical part of your image or a specific color vector. I'm really going to emphasize the color vector secondary color correction in this episode. If you want to affect a very specific part of your screen geographically, that is quite easy. I'm going to grab my fast color corrector, drop it onto this clip. In Premiere, they make it quite easy here. Say we want to bring down just this region, make it darker over here and kind of feather it off. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn on our mask region here, create a 4-point polygon mask here. You've got your pen tool, your circle, or your square. Actually, we could choose a pen tool here and make a very specific region here that we're going to be affecting. And I want to see outside the mask here. I'm going to tell this to size it down to 25%. I'm going to grab these nodes and drag them outside here so it feathers off the edge of the screen here. So right there we created a secondary geographic region that we're going to affect. Let's increase the feather here and soften that off a little bit and grab this and grab these two nodes, kind of expand it to his face there. Say we just want to darken this region over here. Now the geographic region that we created on this primary color corrector here, if we bring down the mids here, notice that region darkens and this region doesn't. Let's move over, select this node, hold down shift and select two nodes at once and kind of move that over, or we can grab just this node and kind of feather it over. But I made this a little too dark just intentionally to show you how that works. So now as we deselect the clip, you'll see that this region has been darkened and this region hasn't. And that's a geographic region. You can actually track that in Premiere. I've got previous episodes on mask and tracking, on creating a mask that you can use, that you can track if the shot is moving. And that's basically one type of secondary color correction right there. We are grading just one geographic portion of the screen. That is one example of secondary color correction. The other example of secondary color correction is choosing a color vector, a very specific color vector, and changing that color hue. Basically, you can choose a range of blues or a range of reds or a range of greens or a mixture of those, and you can decide to suppress that or increase the saturation on it, and that is called secondary color correction as well. So let's get rid of the fast color corrector. And by the way, this layout that I have right here, this is kind of a customized layout. If you want to see how I did that, go back to episode 28. In the very beginning of the video, I show how to achieve this layout here, where you've got the lumetri scopes and you got the effect controls over here and your timeline. This is not a workspace that comes programmed into Premiere. This is kind of simulating their old color correction layout, which I kind of like. If you're not using the lumetri color workspace, which is this, then you can just go, then I've created this custom one here for this specific type of color correction. So go back to episode 28 and watch that if you need to. So I'm going to get the three-way color corrector here. Type in the word 3, brings it up right there. There's our three-way color corrector. Before we get into the secondary color correction portion of this, you'll see that it does have a section here specifically for secondary color correction. And this is here, this type of secondary color correction is specifically for color vector secondary color correction, not geographic color correction. Geographic can just be done up here. But this is very specifically for the color vector method of secondary color correction. But what we've got here, a little different than the fast color corrector, you've got 3 color wheels as opposed to 1. And this gives you a lot more power in color correction here. Because what you can do is you can control the colors in the shadows or in the dark regions of your image. You can control the colors in the midtones, and you can control the colors in the highlights. So say you have some highlight hits here. Let's bring up a vector scope here and do the YUV vector scope. And notice that I'm getting just a little bit of hint of blue right here. And actually, let's bring up our RGB parade as well and look at this on the RGB parade. Notice I am getting some hits on the highlights here in the blue. And likely, as I mentioned before, this is likely happening in the reflection of the silver glasses right here. And say you want to suppress the highlights, the blue highlights a little bit, you can go specifically to these highlights right here. And I'm looking at the blue and the highlights right there. And let's grab these highlights and shift them a little bit more toward, and grab these highlights here, and I'm going to grab and start pulling them off toward the warm areas. And notice right away this is not doing anything yet, and the reason why is because the highlights are defined as anything that's usually above like 80 to 100. We're going to be hitting up here. So even though these are kind of high, they're not quite up in the 80 to 100 IRE region. So that's really not doing anything there. So let's try our mids here. We're going to grab our midtones, and I'm going to grab this and start shifting it up toward the warmth, and look what it's doing. It's starting to warm up the highlights with red and bringing and suppressing the blue highlights, and you'll notice that this has not got such a bluish hue to the glasses anymore. So if you're trying to kind of get rid of those highlights there, that's one way to do it and control it, but that's actually technically midtones, of course, because it's around like the 40 to 70 range there. But watch what happens if we grab our dark areas. Let's grab our shadows and start dragging this. Let's warm up our shadows a little bit, taking them into the warmth. Notice that we're getting a big push in the darks. We're getting a big push of red in the dark areas now, and the blue is coming down here. So we're suppressing the blue and bringing up the warmth there. And it'll start affecting the darker regions before it affects the midtones. And if you do the same thing in the midtones, now this will be affecting the midtones more, and then the highlights, it'll be affecting the warmths in the midtones as well. So if you want to control those, if you've got some heavy blues in the highlights that are truly in the highlights anywhere from 80 to 100, or if you're seeing those in the midtones, you can warm up these specifically or cool them off specifically and experiment with this a bit. That's how the three-way color corrector works there, is being able to control the colors in the darks, the midtones, and the highlights. I'm going to reset that effect, and let's go to a different shot here. On this shot specifically, and oftentimes secondary color correction can be used to bring out the blues in the sky or the green in the leaves if you're trying to make things look more green. In fact, they use this on Oh Brother Where Art Thou to desaturate the green in all the trees and the leaves without making everything look sepia tone. And they were actually able to grab the greens in the trees. There's a video online that shows that you can watch that demonstrates the color correction in Oh Brother Where Art Thou, where they were able to just grab the greens and suppress the green colors so they look brown without suppressing the colors in the rest of the movie, and that's called secondary color correction. So this image right here, first of all, we've got to do some correction on this. So I'm going to go to, actually we can do this with the three-way as well. So I'm going to do this with the fast color corrector first of all. I'm going to grab the fast color corrector, drop it on this, and we're going to get, because right now I've got some really peaking highlights here, so I'm going to bring down my highlights, bring them down less than 100. I'm going to balance this overall image a little bit more. I'm going to bring down the exposure level a little bit and make a little bit of a contrasty image here. Darken the darks. And one other thing, if you've seen the primary color correction tutorial in episode 28, you can go back and watch that. I go through all of this. I'm going to grab the RGB curves, and I'm going to balance the shot out a little bit by bringing down the blues and boosting up the reds to get more of a balanced shot. So here's our before image. Here's what we've got so far. But now, so this kind of goes in a downstream fashion. I've got the first of the fast color corrector, then the RGB curves, and now based on those corrections, we're going to do a three-way color corrector. So I put the three-way color corrector on here, and we're going to use the secondary color correction feature of this to bring out, to really make the orange case here pop. But we don't want to warm up the entire shot and give an orange hue to this entire shot. We just want to bring out that color on the case here. So I'm going to arrow down and go under secondary color corrector. Secondary color corrector, this is going to tell what portion of this image we're going to be affecting with this three-way color corrector. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a mask out of a certain color vector. We're going to choose this kind of orange shade here and make a mask out of that. I'm going to go down here to the eyedropper, grab this. I'm going to move up over this image here with it selected and click right in the middle of the orange. And now that I've clicked, you'll notice this square has turned kind of that color of orange. And we can tell it's to show mask, and it's going to show what colors that we have selected. Right now in white, everything in white is what this is going to affect, and everything in black it will leave alone. So right now we're just getting the case, but notice how it doesn't have all the case here. We want to get pretty much all that case there. So I'm going to zoom up on this a little bit, and we're going to take a closer look at the case here. I want to get as much of that orange as we can. So that's what these features are for. It will select a mask based on hue, saturation, and luminance. So I'm going to arrow down, and what this is here, this range right here, this is kind of the end point of the orange and the ending range, kind of the beginning point and the ending range of that orange color. And then what these triangles here on the side are, these are feathers. Basically, it's feathering off from this point to this point. and from this point to this point. So it's kind of feathering into that color and then feathering out of the color. And you can kind of mess with this a little bit, and let's expand our range of orange here and see if we can get a little bit more of that. And that's not really giving us a big change. So I'm guessing what's going to change on this, what's going to select more of this mask, is going to be based on either saturation or luminance. Let's give this a try. So let's go into saturation and mess with saturation. So this is going to tell it this range of saturation in kind of the dark regions, kind of the low to mid dark regions of the orange is what it's selecting of this specific orange color. So saturation and luma is based on the center color and hue as well. So I'm going to grab this and drag this out, let go. That didn't seem to do much, so I'm going to undo. I'm going to drag it the other region, and that is grabbing more. The saturation is grabbing more on the lower end of the darker orange, and it grabbed more. And you can feather these off a little bit just to soften it up a little bit, and there we go. So now I'm going to try mess with the luminance and see if we can get a little bit more. Let's go into the luma and drag that down, and there we go. That's starting to grab a whole bunch of that there. And you don't want to get, there we go. You don't want to grab it outside of this so much, just the box itself. And that's grabbing a whole lot of it right there. So that's pretty good right there. I'm going to feather that off a little bit just to soften it up. And there we go. Now I've got a good mask of this region, the belay specs region here. And you can select one area, then you go down and hit plus and select another area, and it will try to select a range of colors for you as you hit plus or minus. You can tell it to hit minus of orange colors that are outside of this if you're just trying to get just this box right here. So now we've got a pretty good version of that box. Now what we've got here, two other little features here are going to be soften and edge thinning. Soften is going to soften the edges of the mask. It'll blur this entire mask so it softens it a little bit, doesn't have such hard edges. I'm just going to soften this a teeny bit. Look what happens as we go extreme. That's way too extreme there, but we can just soften this just a teeny bit. I'm going to go like maybe 1.5 on this. There we go, softened it up a bit. And edge thinning, if you drag it to the left, it's going to eat into the mask. If you drag it to the right, it will expand the mask and try to add to it. So sometimes you can just edge thin this a little bit and just bring it in a little bit. And just, if you need to, you can kind of suck it into the image a little bit. I'm going to go in -2 there and just eat into the edge a little bit there. Once that mask is selected, now I can uncheck Show Mask, and it goes back to the image. Now, if I was going to use my fast color corrector on this and trying to add more orange, and I added more orange to this, look how it adds orange to the entire shot on my fast color corrector. But if we go to my secondary color corrector that I just did, I just did undo. Go to my secondary color corrector, my three-way color corrector, which has a secondary, and I grab the saturation, go under master saturation, and boost up that orange. Look at this as I exaggerate it, took it up to 200%. Look how orange that gets. Even if you want that more orange, you can grab the mids, drag them up toward the orange here. You can grab the gain and boost it. You can grab the gain and boost that even more. That went more toward the red there. There we go. Look how orange I just made that, like a little too orange. You can do that to the darks as well and boost those. I'm just showing you, exaggerating, show you that it is just changing the color on this box and nothing else. I'm going to reset these here. Let's just get that just to where it just kind of makes that orange pop a little bit. So I'm going to go here, take it out toward the orange region just a bit, and now I'm going to grab the saturation and increase my saturation. There we go. So let's turn this off. There's before, and there's after. And look how it makes that orange box pop there and nothing else. That is secondary color correction. So now we can kind of finish this off. I can finally get a luma curve after this is all done here. After this is all finished from top to bottom here, the luma curve is going to do the finalized image here. And let's add kind of a nice contrasty image here. Bring down the highlights a little bit. And there we go. There's our finished image. So let's look at the before and after. I'm going to highlight all these. I'm going to grab each one of these things here and delete them. There's our before image. Undo that. There's our after image. So that is essentially secondary color correction. You can select a specific region. You can use a specific color vector, or if there is another case that's outside here that's orange as well, and you don't want that one to pop as much as this one, you can actually go to your three-way color corrector. You can choose your free draw Bezier tool and just create a mask around this region. Now, if there's another box out here or something else that shares orange with this one, you don't want that to pop, but you want this one to pop, it just masks this image in here, and now it is only affecting this image here, the orange in this area right here, and nothing outside of that mask there. So you can use the geographic in combination with the color vector secondary color correction, and you have quite a bit of power on this. So this sort of color correction can be applied to, like I mentioned, you can do it to bring out the blues in the sky, the green in the leaves, a specific color on somebody's shirt, or a skin tone, or anything else. So experiment with it. If you have any comments or questions, please post them, and I'll hopefully be able to get back with you. Thank you.